Welcome to the Opt-in podcast, where we spill all of the tea and I teach business professionals how to go from surviving to thriving inside of other people's businesses. I am Melissa Franks, your host, and this week we are talking about the third quarter and turning 45 and the kickoff for the last 90 days of the year. This podcast is action-packed. If you are listening to this at some point in the future, if nothing else, it will be entertaining and you can decide what you want to carry forward with and what you don't. But we're just going to jump right in because I have 3 things I want to hit with you today and not a ton of time to do it. So if you are new here, what you will find is at the end of every quarter, I do a recap. What went well? What didn't work well? What did I learn? And just an overall state of the union of the quarter. And the reason that I do these states of the union is because I do them professionally and I do them personally. And this is a practice that I started to implement in 2019. I think maybe even a little bit earlier. And it's allowed me to identify trends or habits that I do or don't want to continue. It allows me to see where I'm spending my time and if I need to adjust that. It allows me to determine if I'm shooting for the moon and not even wrangling the stars, which happens a lot. It's been additionally important in this season because I'm almost a year into a new role. After being with a company for 15 years, going to a new organization where you're building things from scratch, it's a huge and different ballgame. So I need to be able to just stay connected to what actually happened and remind myself we're making progress. It's been also helpful because I've had a lot of changes just in general. This podcast is new. It's not even a year old yet. I do some business coaching on the side. I've got another opportunity that I'm considering to work in the nonprofit space. I've got 3 kids who are super busy and 2 of them started at new schools this year. So there's just a ton of stuff going on, and being able to do a quarter in review, which is just a bite-sized part of the year, allows me to celebrate wins, evaluate losses, and come up with a game plan for the following year. Did I say year? I meant quarter. See? This is what happens when your plate is full. So the third quarter, when I look back on it, I had very, very high hopes. When we talk about third quarter, we're talking about specifically July, August, and September. And 2 out of those 3 months are generally slower business months, which means you can either make up a ton of traction or you coast along. And due to a variety of things that I'm not going to get into here, what the third quarter ended up becoming was a time to push the reset button. It really ended up being a quarter of pausing, looking left and right, and then determining how to move forward. And I wish I could say that it was just this way in one lane. It was not. It was this way personally and professionally. And I was in an overall season of evaluation, course correcting, pivoting, reactionary. And by the skin of my teeth, we got to the end of the quarter. So the first thing that I want to say is it's challenging to do any sort of true analysis around were the goals and objectives that were established at the quarter met, because there was so much disruption in all lanes that the goals just don't make any sense anymore. And that's why this quarter in a review is so important, because if I waited until the end of the year to count up wins and losses, I would have lost context around what had happened and why there was something disruptive that happened in the year. The fact of the matter is that things are out of your control sometimes. And even when you're a C-suite executive, even when you have all of the authority and autonomy in the world, even when you're a citizen of the United States of America, things happen that you don't have control over, that you cannot predict, that you don't see coming. And that's what happened this quarter, both professionally and personally. So when I sat down to say, what were the wins? What I can say emphatically is that we completed our proof of concept. Well, we're still in progress, but we completed a huge hurdle, the proof of concept for the startup idea and initiative. And we learned so much, so much. We were able to reconfirm and validate the market segment that we're after and our business plan and how we want to approach the entire model of the organization. We identified that the staffing approach that we thought we should have and the roles that we thought the senior leader level of the organization weren't the ones we needed. This was all exercises done on paper. So, it was just business plan, mumbo jumbo. But as we started to bring to life the operational plan and we went through the proof of concept, we realized that we needed specialized expertise that we hadn't really planned on having. So that allowed us to pivot and get smart about what we did. So the proof of concept was successful and that we learned a lot. It confirmed that our technology platform is ready to go. It was all of these really, really good things. And it was super painful. And if you've ever been through a proof of concept in any business setting at all, they're always painful. Even if everything is working and built out and defined and you know what you're supposed to do, it's still hard. And this was that case. And we weren't predicting that. We thought it would be smooth sailing. That was a little bit of a naivete on my part. And then personally, there were just a lot of changes, which this is a business podcast, so we're not going to talk about those today. Maybe we will in the future. And it required me to step away from the office for a couple of weeks. And then it required me to rebalance where I was spending my time, where I was physically working, and what my days looked like on a daily basis. And that wasn't something I was prepared for. I was prepared for grind season. So when I set out my goals for the third quarter, I expected I was going to be in my office from 8 to 5. We didn't have any big family vacation schedules. So I was just running to the hills to get us to the end of the third quarter where we had some really big milestones set. And about halfway through the quarter, the rules changed. And luckily, the business was in a moment of reevaluation and realignment with our perspective and business plan. And so it allowed me a little bit of breathing room to figure out what my schedule and approach to getting 24 hours of work done in a 12-hour period, let's say. It's a bad analogy because there's not 24 hours of work. And it helped me, kind of figure that out as we went. And so overall, when I look back at the quarter, I would say that our successes are the proof of concept, while not complete, taught us a lot, and we were able to adjust and modify and strategize and now execute based on that information. We confirmed that our tech platform is sound and that it works great. I got all 3 kids off to school on time and they love their schools and they've acclimated well. And the 2 that get report cards are straight A students for the first grading period. Who could ask for more? Everybody's activities are in full swing and they're having a great time and loving their life. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I went through 1,000 mini remodels in my house in the month of August. So that has completed. So overall, as hectic and surprising as the third quarter was, it was really successful. It taught me some lessons though. And one of the lessons that it taught me was that I need to be open to the possibility that the plans that I made are not the right plans to follow. I tend to build a plan and follow the plan, and then the results come. That is my happy place. That is where I like to live. And the reality of business and life is that plans are just suggestions. They're not fact. And that when life and business happens, it's absolutely okay to adjust the plans. You just need to continuously communicate how the plan is changing, why it is changing, and make sure everybody is on board. And when it became apparent that the plans needed to change, I really resisted. I had a very specific goal that I wanted to hit. I wanted to prove this kind of to myself and to other people that we could do it. And when the circumstances just changed, and it just was what it was a hard pill for me to swallow. It felt like failure to me. And it wasn't that, but that's what it felt like. And that made me uncomfortable. And that gave me a kick in the gut to my self-confidence. And that had me questioning my capabilities for the whole kit and caboodle, business, personal life, everything. And what I learned from that is that I need to find a way to be less emotionally invested in the plans that I build. That is going to be something that will take me probably a decade to resolve. The reason that I say that is because I get emotionally invested in everything. As much as I can say that I don't tie my identity to my job title, because I don't, I do, to a certain extent, tie my identity to the success I have professionally. It's important for me to create audacious goals and achieve them. And when I don't, or there's a misstep, or I have to abandon a goal, I get frustrated. I find fault in my own self when sometimes I have nothing to do with the failure that came in. And this is something I have to work on. And this quarter was a really good reminder to me that I haven't done the work, that I haven't gotten over this hump, that I haven't come to this more actualized place where I can disassociate my emotions from the reality of the circumstances and do my hardest and work my hardest and also be okay if we fall short. You know, I think a lot about, and something that I've been watching is Deion Sanders, coach at Colorado. And if you're not a football fan, I'm sorry, but you should know who this is because it's all over everything. And that football team came like out of the gate. Like Deion had a plan. He recruited college players from other colleges and he stacked his team. And then he very publicly announced that it was personal and he was coming for everybody. And last weekend, his team was slaughtered by Oregon. Slaughtered. It was a bloodbath. That was probably the worst outcome that he as a coach could ever imagine. And as somebody that has a healthy ego, which I think even he would say, was embarrassing. He had gone on this public, national, and international stage and declared success before it came, declared that his model was unstoppable and unbeatable, and it wasn't. And as I was watching all of that unfold, and I was watching how he was responding, and I was watching how he picked himself back up, and I'm watching, you know, his sound bites and clips and things that have come out in the days following, what resonated with me was that his belief in his abilities and his belief in his players and his belief in his team and his coaching staff is unwavering. Regardless of the outcome of one moment in time, his belief in himself and others did not change. He is still emphatic that they're the best football team. He is still emphatic that they know exactly what they need to do to win. And he's still emphatic that they're going to continue to win and win and win and win and win. They just had an off day. And as I watch how he's working through this, he's leading with grace and dignity and intentionality. I now have a blueprint for how to declare publicly and loudly these big, audacious goals and how to continue to have belief even when they're not achieved. How to not doubt myself because the outcome wasn't what I expected or wanted. How to have greater belief in myself because it's just teaching me something so I can be better the next time. So as I was coming kind of to this realization that I was still too emotionally invested and that the impact of not achieving goals that I had set that were not achievable anymore because circumstances had changed was making me frustrated and short on patience and meant that I wasn't showing up the best way that I should be showing up for all of the people. I had this example out there in the world that I really keyed into and said, that's how I want to behave. Those are the characteristics that I want to have. How can I figure out what to do? So this lesson specifically for me at the end of the third quarter is how to get myself to the next place closer to that. I can't go from where I am to where I aspire to be, but I can take small incremental steps. And so currently I'm working on what my next best step is to develop those skills, strengthen those muscles, and show up better going forward. The fourth quarter is full of big, audacious, holy heck, how are we going to do this? Yes, we can do it goals. So it's going to give me an excellent opportunity to start working on strengthening this muscle. That's the great thing about business and life, is that once you realize that you have a weak spot and something that you want to work on, life serves you up many more opportunities to strengthen yourself very, very quickly. So for me, the third quarter was a time to pause. The third quarter was a time of transition. A third quarter was a quarter where goals declared were no longer aligned with reality. And it was a quarter where I learned a very big lesson about my own personal development and where I have opportunities to continue to fortify my self-confidence, to continue to fortify the belief in myself, and to continue to be able to be driven and a high performer and strive for excellence and have big audacious goals and allow that to be so without it creating emotional drain and impact in other areas of my life. So the third quarter is a lot for one, where we kind of paused and pivot. It was a lot. But rounding out that third quarter, and I'm recording this 3 days before I turn 45. Whew. It's just really given me an opportunity to reflect. And the universe, if you believe in woo-woo things, for the last week or two has been screaming at me to just wait, to stop trying to make decisions, to stop trying to force issues, to stop, just take a breath, pause, slow down, stay close to home. I had a friend pull a tarot card and she read, and it said the exact same thing that my human design was recommending that I do. So I kind of feel like if my tarot card and my human design recommendations are the same, then probably the universe is now screaming at me to just take a beat and to wait and not push things through and not make big decisions and just breathe. So we're going to do that. And we're going to do that in respect to the fact that I have a monumental birthday. And I know most of you are thinking, like, what do you mean? It's not a monumental birthday. In my life, a birthday that ends in 5 has always been much more difficult than a birthday that ends in a 0. If I could explain it to you, I would. But I cannot. It has been true for 25 and 35, and I am trying to break the cycle at 45. But those have been hard birthdays for me. They've been hard birthdays for me because I had set goals that I didn't achieve, and I was very disappointed in myself, and a little bit on the heels of what we were just talking about with having my self-confidence and my belief in myself tied up to goal attainment. I think that's what happened at 25 and 35. I had set these big life goals and professional goals, and I hadn't hit them, and then I felt like failure. And so I got in bed, pulled the covers over my head, refused to, have a day and do all those things. And dang it, we're not doing that this year. I think Oprah once said that the 40s were the best decade of her life. And then she came out and said that 50s were, and then she has followed on and said 60s were. So I suspect that when she is in her 70s, she's going to say that that's her best decade. But I tend to agree with her. The more time that elapses, the better you know yourself. And the more comfortable you get with who you are, the more certain you are, the less crap you take from people, just in general. And rounding the corner into 45, I'm feeling super strong. I'm happy where I am. I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with the sort of work that I'm doing. Is everything perfect? No, but that's life. But I have a good life. I have great kids. Things are good. And so as I look at how the third quarter went and the things that it taught me and where I'm at now, and I have this birthday looming in front of me on Sunday, and I have one more quarter of the year to go with big, audacious, huge goals. it gives me a moment to say, how am I going to show up these last 3 months? How am I going to reset myself? How am I going to focus myself? What am I going to do to get to the year end in a better position than the one I'm in now? How am I going to make 45, the start of 45 better than 44? How am I going to finish 2023 better than I started it? And I love this period of time, these days, right as the third quarter ends and the fourth quarter begins. And I love them because it allows you to see the finish line and then develop your plan to sprint towards it. Rachel Hollis and Dave Hollis, who is now passed, I don't know, many years ago, started an initiative inside of their community called The Last 90 Days. And if you don't know who Rachel Hollis is, Google her and you'll find all sorts of good and bad because that is what Google does. But she's a personal development coach, speaker, blogger, book writer, etc. And her approach to The Last 90 Days is pick a goal and then work towards it over the 90 days. And she's got a variety of dimensions that she pulls. So she's got a framework kind of around drinking enough water and exercising and sleeping. And she's got a bunch of other stuff. And when I first was introduced to this, I was really excited about it because I had never looked at the last quarter of the year as the time to make a ton of progress. I had always seen it as when we all slow down, we've got a bunch of holidays and there's not a lot of productivity. And so she really flipped the script for me around what year end could be like. And as I started to have teams that were larger and larger and larger, what I realized is that everybody takes a breath and a break and slows down when we should be speeding up at the end of the year. And being inside of operations, that's our busy season. That's when you do the most contracts. That's when you're trying to get the most revenue in the door. That's when you're closing the books. It's when there's just so much stuff going on in the fourth quarter. So it didn't make any sense that my teams were slowing down because we actually needed to be most productive at the end of the year and you have less time. Like I always love to tell people that if you have 12 weeks between the 1st of October and the 31st of December, you actually really only have 9 because there's 2 weeks at the holidays and there's a week at Thanksgiving that are just gone. So your last quarter of the year is actually only 9 weeks. Sit with that for a second. And so when this approach that Rachel Hollis pulled out for the last 90 days, it just resonated with me. And so I immediately thought, how can I translate this into something that I do with my organizations to motivate them, to keep them engaged and plugged in and focused on goals and objectives to get us to the end of the year? And so what I did is I took her framework and her approach and her concept, and then I created my own way of doing things. Shocking, I know. But what it is very simple. I ask that you identify 3 goals for the quarter. 1 is professional, 1 is personal, and then 1 of them is development related. And that's it. So 1 professional goal, 1 business goal you have to achieve, 1 personal goal, and 1 development related. And that's it. And then we built a plan month by month. So what are you going to do in the first 30 days towards the goal, the next 30 days, and the final 30 days? And everybody did that and completed it. And then how I supported was that every week for the last 12 weeks, there was a theme. And so what I'm going to be doing here with the podcast, starting this week, which is the last few minutes of this podcast today, and then going forward into the coming weeks, is we're going to have a theme a week that's focused on keeping you focused for the last 90 days. So I'm going to ask now, so pause the podcast if you need to, come back to it if you need to, or pause it and go get what you need. I'm going to ask you now to pull out pen, paper, notebook, whatever. And I want you to write down your 1 professional goal, your 1 personal goal, and your 1 development goal. Now, to provide clarity, because everybody can nail the professional goal, the personal goal can be anything. It can be, I'm going to drink my body weight in ounces of water a day. It could be, I'm going to walk 30 minutes every day. It could be, I'm going to go to bed by 10 p.m. every night. It could be, I'm not going to drink alcohol in January. I don't know. I'm making this up. It's up to you what your personal goal is. Only you're going to know what it is, so you write it down. And then the development goal is learning a new skill. Again, let this be what you want it to be. You want to learn how to play the guitar? There's your development goal. You want to learn how to knit? There's your development goal. You want to learn how to code? There's your development goal. You want to become AWS Cloud certified? There's your development goal. You want to learn a new language? There's your development goal. It can be whatever you want. You just need to be learning something. The reason that one is so important is because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of studies that show that lifetime learners have healthier brains for the long term. It means that they have less incident of dementia or Alzheimer's or fill in the blank, any of the other things that can affect you later in life. If you continue to learn and endeavor to acquire skills, knowledge, and expertise throughout your entire lifetime, you reduce the likelihood that you're going to suffer from some of those things that I mentioned, plus other things. So that's why the development goal is so important. I don't care if you can play guitar well. I just care that you're dedicating the time to attempting to acquire a new skill because it's good for you and it gives you a break and it has you step away from work or your demanding personal life and doing something just because you want to. Shocking, I know. So create 3 goals. Write them down on your piece of paper. And then the next thing that I want you to do is say, what are you going to do in the next week to get started on each one of those goals? And this week's word is clarity. So what you're going to do this week is all about gaining clarity. So if I have said that I want to learn how to play the guitar, the first thing that I need to do is figure out what are all of the ways that I can learn how to play the guitar. Can I learn by watching somebody's YouTube channel? Can I learn by taking online music courses? Can I learn by going to an in-person instructor or an at-home instructor? How can I acquire this expertise? That's one thing that I need to gain clarity on. Another thing that I need to gain clarity on is, what do I actually need? Do I need a specific type of guitar? Where do I get that? Do I have to buy it? Can I rent it? Do I need strings or a pick or music? Do I need to know how to read music? On and on and on. But what I'm doing is I'm taking that goal and I'm gaining clarity. What do I need to know? What do I need to have? What do I need to be? Who do I need to be connected to in order to be successful? And you're going to do that for each of the 3 goals. The action of being clear is to be able to shed light on something, to illuminate it, and then to be able to see exactly what you're looking at. And by being definitive with what you need, you will then be able to start building a plan of action. I want to remind you that setting a goal doesn't mean that the next immediate thing that you do is take action. Setting a goal also requires a plan. And in order to build a plan, you need to be clear on the steps and the materials and the resources that you need to be able to achieve whatever you set out was the goal. So this very first week, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be really getting clear on, when we said that we want to learn how to play the guitar, what did we actually mean? What do we actually need to do? And how actually is that going to work? Because my guess is what you're going to find is your goal is not specific enough. If your goal that you wrote down was, I'm going to learn how to play the guitar, when you start to figure out what you need and how to do that and et cetera, you're going to realize, well, what I actually meant was I'm going to learn how to play one song. Or what I actually meant was that I was going to learn how to play 3 chords. Or what I actually meant, fill in the blank. Doing the work to build the plan will bring the clarity on what actually you're planning to achieve when you set out this goal. It helps you clarify. It helps you be specific around what you intend to have happen by week 12. The other thing that I want to point out as you're writing these things down is that it's entirely possible that it doesn't take you 12 weeks to get to the goal. It's entirely possible. You may say that you want to learn how to knit, and you want to be able to do that so that you can create a scarf for somebody's holiday gift. Well, you may be able to go to a knitting shop, buy the materials, learn how to knit a scarf, and be done in an afternoon. Box is checked. That's the beauty of this. You get to decide how big or small these goals are. You get to decide how long it's going to take, how much effort you're going to put in. The whole point is that you are being productive and you are growing your expertise and skill set, and you are delivering value in the last period of the year. It is up to you to define what your goals are. It's up for you to define how you want to lay that out. So if you're going to join us on this last 90 days, and if you're committed to doing this, your homework is to write 3 goals: professional, personal, and development. And week 1's homework, once you've done that, is to gain clarity. By the end of week 1, you must have your 3 goals, and they must be specific and measurable, and you must be incredibly clear on what outcome you are driving towards and how you plan to get there. So what are you going to do in the first 30 days? What are you going to do in the first 60 days? What are you going to do in the first 90 days? That's it. And then as we go, we will have a focus area week after week. We will talk about things like resiliency, frustration, resources, asking for help, confusion, procrastination. It goes on and on and on. But every week we'll talk about a different concept, something that you could be experiencing or you may experience in the future as you're moving towards the finish line. We're starting small, the very beginning. We're setting the goals. We're getting clear about what we need to do to achieve the results that we want in the time frame that we have. That's it. Now, I'm going to be candid with you that I don't have my goals figured out for the 4th quarter. And I'm running out of daylight. I think I've got 2 days left before I make these big declarations and figure it out. And I'm kind of at a loss. I think that, the big pivot from the 3rd quarter and the reset and the refocus and all of the things has me a little bit flummoxed. And I know what the business goal is. That's clear. I got it. I know exactly what it is. That's all fine and good. But when I start to think about what I want to learn in the last quarter, I don't know. Last year, I was so fired up. I was embedded in human design and learning about all of that stuff. I was learning how to do the podcast and all the things that it came up with. And I was just all in. I had so many things I was learning. The list was so long. And this year I'm coming up empty. But as I'm saying this, I think I've got an opportunity that's sitting in front of me. And if I decide to move forward with that opportunity, that's going to give me an opportunity to learn new skills. It's going to give me an opportunity to have to dive in and figure out how the nonprofit space works. And that's not something that I know anything about right now. So that's probably my development area. That's where I'm going to be spending time and learning. And then my personal goal is, this is going to sound insane, but my personal goal is to work less. I'm going to reinstitute. I used to be really good at this and I've been really bad at it for the last year. I'm going to reinstitute beginning of workday, end of workday, and standard business hours. And I'm going to hold myself to it. I keep having these horrifying thoughts and primarily because I'm saying obnoxious things out loud to my 14-year-old, like, you only have 4 homecomings. Of course, you have to go to the football game and the dance. if he only has 4 homecomings, that means that I only have 4 more years of him in the house with 4 homecomings. And then I'm horrified. So it's really important in this season where I have a child that's going to leave in 4 years, and I have a child that's going to leave in 6 years, and I have a child that's going to leave in 8 years, to be present with them when I am present with them. And so I really think my personal goal is going to be to reinstitute those office hours that start and end of the workday. Just, chill out a little bit on overextending myself and be really, really careful about what I commit to so that I can preserve and protect the time that I have with them. So that's probably my second goal. And then, like I said, the professional goals are really, really clear. Next week on the pod, I will confirm to you what the personal and the development goals are. The business goal I'm going to have to keep close to my vest because that's confidential. But I'm going to be right there with you, working towards my goals, struggling. I'm going to report to you guys every week how things are going, where I fell down, where I sped up. And I'm really excited to do this together as a community. If you have decided to jump in and you love this idea, please share this podcast on social media, and please share it with anybody that you would like to do this with side by side. For those of you that have teams, feel free to take this and use it with your teams organizationally. I did for years and years and years, and it was highly successful. Everybody really enjoyed it. They enjoyed my weekly emails with the focus topics. You can even take the focus topics that I use and reuse them for yourselves. It was a really good way to build team camaraderie and all work together, even though our goals were different, on a common goal. And if you are overly enthused about how this works and you want to see the master in action, I recommend that you go follow Rachel Hollis and her Start Today brand. They, I believe, are running another 90-day challenge here at the end of the year, and you can learn from the master herself. It's not so professionally bent as what I have turned it into, but it definitely is the OG and a place for you to go and learn. So with that said, thank you for being here for my third quarter wrap up, for understanding how things are going as I roll into my 45th year, and for participating in the kickoff for the last 90 days of 2023. Until I talk to all of you next time, please remember that you are strong and you are wise and you are brave, and I believe in you.